In this video, I'll show you the crucial steps I take to get to know my team and start my time as a new manager on the right foot. So getting to know each and every individual on my team allows me to start building the culture of the team and allows me to build the trust and safety, which are the cornerstones in the future of my development and my team's development and the success of both my team and myself as their manager and leader. So the first step is I always make sure I have a dedicated time on my schedule for my team, and that's every single day. A good rule of thumb, at least for me, is that I have at least 2 hours per day. Most of the time, I'm going to have more, but that's definitely going to depend on the situation that I'm getting into at the beginning. I make sure that that time is on my schedule because what usually happens is when you're a new manager, people want to start talking to you. They want to set up meetings and stuff. So I always make sure that, hey, at least 2 hours a day are dedicated for my team and that it's blocked off and nobody can actually disrupt me at that time unless there's an emergency. If I come to a team in a role of a firefighter, which means that something needs to be done right away, the company is in trouble, I was pretty much brought there so that I can solve the situation. It means that I'll probably spend only 2 hours per day with the team. And the rest of the time, I'm going to be doing other things to make sure that the company doesn't go down or the department saved. It really depends on the situation. Coming in as a firefighter, if you want to make a career in a specific company, is the best thing because you're there. If it fails, it fails. Usually, hey, there was nothing you can do. But if you actually succeed in turning the team around, department around, you're actually going to be praised as the person that made the change happen. So the second important thing that I also do is I make sure that everybody gets equal treatment so that they have equal time with me. So whether that's one-on-ones, coffee time, chit chats, it doesn't really matter. I make sure that every single one of my team members or direct reports that they have the same amount of time with me or at least similar amount of time. What usually happens is we as humans tend to want to spend more time with people that agree with our viewpoint, that we like more, that they're closer to our personalities. And that's all fine. But within a team, you need to make sure that everybody gets equal time. What's going to happen is if you have a really good and diverse team, you're going to have some people that you're not so keen talking with because it's maybe a little bit awkward for you. You don't know what to talk about. Some of them may be confrontational, but you need to make sure that every single one of them gets the same amount of time. When you do this, you're still going to be building on trust and safety. People will know that you don't take preferential candidates, preferential team members, and just spend time with them. Because if you do, you're going to be setting yourself out in sort of a bubble. So when I was head of operations, I had one person that we really didn't gel together. And one of the mistakes that I made is I never spent time with him. Mostly we just spend the time during our team meetings. What happened was that slowly we began to drift apart. I didn't understand completely what the person was doing, what he was thinking, and all of that, which kind of in the end led to that person leaving my team and actually getting a job somewhere else. In the end, it was all for the best. But what did happen was that the person wasn't 100% motivated. He wasn't doing his best job and wasn't giving it 100%. This is why it's super important for me as a manager and a leader to make sure that everybody gets equal time and equal treatment, to never, ever, ever give preferential treatment to a single person or to isolate other people because I may not agree with them and their point of view, or I really don't like their personalities. And also the other important thing about this is if you create differences, your team will feel this. It won't be cohesive and you will not be able to create the team culture. So when I'm setting aside my time, it really depends on what kind of a position I'm in when I'm determining how I'm going to spend the time to get to know my team. As an example, I was a head of operations for a 5-person team. So, and that was completely different than when I led 120 people in a production environment. So when I was leading a 5-person team, we were able to have more conversations. We got to know each other a lot more, and they were all my direct reports. So I didn't have anybody that was reporting to my team. When I was leading 120 people as a production director, I had 4 departments, and the department heads were my direct reports. So I always made sure that I was talking with them at least once a day. And the way I did a little bit differently this time when allocating my time, I didn't give them equal time. And the reasoning behind this was because 2 department heads were completely new and they were actually in charge of the 2 most critical departments. With those 2 departments, we were producing 85% of the finished products, whereas the other two departments were producing only 15%. So I made sure that I gave the majority of my time to those two departments. The two departments that I wasn't giving them more time, those two were really experienced department leaders. So I knew that they would be able to handle everything without me being there. And so here you can see the different styles of how I allocated time. One, when I had a 5-man team, I was a lot more personal with them. We had more time together. But when I had a 120-man team, I was spending a lot more time with my department heads, but I was also spending time with their reports. So I made sure that every single day I spent at least 1 hour walking around the production area and just speaking with people, just getting to know them and asking them questions. Hey, how does this machine work? What do you do? People were really responsive to this, and they will always be, because they will always want to talk with the manager if you're at least decent and you're not an a-hole. Also, I was getting to know them. I was getting to understand the whole process, and I wasn't dependent on what the department heads were telling me. For a leader and a manager, one of the most important skills is listening. Being listened to is such a striking experience because it's so rare. The majority of people think that they actually know how to listen, but that's almost never the case. What they do is they mostly listen superficially. They listen to words and then they reply based on the words and the assumptions that they actually have. But this can't be the only way you communicate with your team. Otherwise, you're going to fail miserably as a leader and manager. But the actuality of being listened to means being understood and being seen, feeling seen. And when you actually are listened to, you're going to feel that the other person just understands you, knows what you're talking about, and you feel seen and heard. And the reason the majority of people just listen superficially is mostly because of the pressures of life. They just listen to just to get by. And that is actually also true for the majority of leaders and managers. They just don't have the time to listen to the person. And what do they usually do? A person comes to them and has an issue. They want the person to tell them the problem, and then right away they want to just evaluate the options, choose a solution, and then move on as fast as possible. And sometimes this is okay, as in when you have a crisis, that's what usually needs to happen. You need to solve a situation really fast. This is what I did a lot of times in the military when we had a bunch of crises, and I just needed to evaluate the situation, understand the options, and just tell people what they needed to do, because I really wanted to solve the situation as fast as possible. The same thing happened to me several times while I was in IT. We had one of our clients that their whole system crashed. So I barged into a meeting that another team had, and I found the person that actually needed to help me. So I pretty much told them, excuse me, but we have a crisis here. One of our clients' system dropped down and they can't process any orders. Nobody questioned me why I was barging in or what was happening. They just went on to work and they fixed the problem. One of the big issues when it comes to listening from leaders and managers, it's also that they think that they have to speak a lot. So that they need to be the leader of the conversation, that they always need to speak, that their opinions are the crucial ones. The funny thing is, a lot of the times, as leaders and managers, we should be speaking less and actually listening more. But in most cases, this doesn't happen because as a manager, people think that they need to be in charge, they need to say more, their opinion matters more. And as a result, they actually don't listen to their team. Now, let's talk about the 3 levels of listening that we have. The first one is internal listening. And that listening is listening to the other person's words and what that means for us. We're only focusing on ourselves. And so the decisions, choices, or judgments that we make about the other person are based on what that means to us, what it means about us. So this is where most of the managers are, where they listen only superficially and they make decisions based on what it means to them. And also they make decisions as quickly as possible so that they can move on to another task, another issue that they're dealing with. The next level of listening, so level 2, is focused listening. This is where we have a sharp focus on the other person. We are really listening to them, what words they're saying. We are aware of the other person. We're aware of their body language, how they're feeling, what they're feeling. And we're also aware of their tone and pace of what they're saying. We're also aware of the impact that our listening has on the other person. Focused listening gives us a level of awareness, empathy, collaboration, and clarification of the words that the other person is saying. And this is where the other person is really going to start feeling seen and listened to and also understood. Level three listening is where both of you are at the center of the universe. Nothing else matters, no distractions, nothing. It almost feels like that you're surrounded by a force field. Nothing can distract you. Here is where you have access to your own intuition and you're receiving information that is not observable. You understand the other person's feelings, what they're saying, how they're saying it, or what they're not saying. What you're using in level three listening is all of your senses. All of your senses are receiving the information and stimuli that you can get, and you respond to the other person based on all of this information that you're getting. So I'll leave you with three things that you also need to make sure as a manager that you're following. So number one, you need to make sure that as a manager, your team has access to you, that you allow them to talk to you, and that you have an open door policy. They need to be able to talk to you if they need you, unless there's a big emergency. Number two, it's up to you to make sure that your team succeeds, not the other way around. Your success or failure is going to be determined by how well your team does, not only you. You're only one person and you will fail if your team fails.